one.
Okay, that'll sum it up. We're conversationalists. We enjoy it. If I throw the name out, Chris Cretton, you know that name?
Yeah, absolutely. Chris and Bonnie.
Yep. You have a friend named Dan that you've done some projects with. Two sons I've had in class.
Sure, Dan Buck.
I have sat on the Cretton front porch and chatted up with him. I mean, so we're going to crash into a whole lot of names that we are familiar with.
Yeah, Chris is great.
He's one of my
Dan
best friends on the planet. Of course you would say that.
Yeah.
We just love a good conversation. And that is probably at the heart of everything that we do when we push record on this. So,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
Matt, you were saying something.
Yeah. First of all, why did you say yes when I messaged you to ask you to?
That's a good question.
Sure, yeah. Well, I think it was because I was in the middle of when you asked me, I was right in the middle of a moment of peace and centeredness about myself. I was dealing with a large pushback on a Facebook group that I manage. And you were in the middle of all that. You were like in the comments asking some questions, and then and I was feeling, and I still feel, I felt calm and really mindful about where I was in that moment. And I thought, well, maybe he's reaching out to me because of this, right? Because you had asked some questions, and I thought,
Yeah.
well, if this is another platform with which I can ask people to be reasonable humans in the world, then I'll take it.
Yeah,
And I didn't know if I would be on here having to tell you guys to be reasonable, or if
I don't know. This kind of sounds downright mindful. I mean,
or
you're
if it
hitting our
would be-
theme here, buddy. I love it.
or if it would be just another platform for that. And so I said, that's why I said yes. Now I speak a lot, and I'm on podcasts pretty frequently. And it's sometimes there because people want to ask me about marketing, which I've done for a long time, or they want to ask about kind of social media navigation or community building and things like that. But I don't know. I felt like we are currently in a moment right now where any reasonable person can look around and say, this is not normal.
Sure.
Right? No matter how you feel about the things that are going on right now. You can look around and say, this is unique. Like, it's unique in my lifetime, and I'm 51. So it's in the entirety of my life, I've never looked around and thought, what a wild time, right? And so you were right in the middle of all that, and I think, so I was like, sure, yeah, let's go. Like, I felt very calm. So that's why I said yes.
That's cool.
And you're someone that I had wanted to ask to come on for quite some time. And I think when I found myself right in the middle of that, I thought, you know what, man, I made a comment here. And even though I try to be as polite as I could be and as thoughtful as I could be, I don't have a clue what it's like to manage this population of people that the temperature has been turned up so high on.
Yeah.
And that just, when I made it out of that without anybody getting their feelings hurt or anything like that because of me,
You don't
I
know.
think.
You might have offended a lot of people.
Maybe, yeah. If you're out there,
Listen,
I'd like
it's
to
still
say,
on the internet. Someone could find it next week and get
I'd like to
offended.
say that I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I was like, man, I want to sit down and talk with this guy, and whether it's about that or not, I don't care, because that's a tough subject, especially for a guy like you that has so many people with their ears on you.
Yeah.
But that's that's part of what we do. The title of our podcast is Downright Mindful, which sort of has sort of this.
Yeah, I did like that. That was actually part of the reason I said yes. Was I looked at when you asked me, you said the name of the podcast, and I thought, okay, like you had one thing that I already agreed with, You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah.
I can agree with being downright mindful, you know, which
Okay,
is like
good.
what I felt like those couple of days in my life was what I was trying to ask people to be.
I tell you, yeah.
And so I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll take that.
I liked the name of the podcast. you know?
Yeah, I love that, and I'm glad you got it. And I did see you go live that night, and you were absolutely downright mindful. I mean, you
Thank you.
yeah. But that's what I was about to say before we pressed record. Is this is something we don't often say out loud, but in this community, Paul and I both, I think, and I'll speak for Paul and I'll let him respond, but we kind of represent two groups of folks. Okay, I was born at Bradley Memorial Hospital and hauled to 1916 Rolling Brook Drive when I was a baby. I've been here all my life. I've never left. And Paul represents what so many of my adult friends now represent, of someone who found themselves here because of a university in town, and they fell in love with the town, or they fell in love with a girl, or both.
Yeah.
And they ended up staying here and building a life. And that leaks into a lot of our conversations, of me
Yeah,
being
for
aware
sure.
of what his point of view on things from that regard, and him being aware. Sometimes he'll ask me questions that I can only answer as a homeboy, you know, of
Yeah.
the Bradley County people. So
It wasn't until I had children here. So when I got here, I came from Northwest Indiana, which is just south of Chicago. So Chicago news, when you look at a map and it says the greater Chicagoland area, that's where I was at. So Chicago sports, Chicago news. And I moved down here having been born in Gary Hospital in Gary, Indiana, and growing up at a time when Gary had surpassed Detroit as the most violent city in America.
wow.
And at some point in the early 80s, we were the first police department to have issued fully automatic rifles. They were the first one in the United States because they couldn't keep up with the gangs. You know, the gangs had fully automatic machine guns, and so they gave them to the police, right? So I came down here, and it was like heaven. I was like, wait a minute, you just walk around at night and go swim in a river. You know what I mean? It's just like, it was really wonderful. And it wasn't really until I had kids here and I watched their experience with that homegrown, I'm from here. You know, I never understood all the, I can't wait to get out of this town. I can't wait to get out of this town. I was like, are you kidding me? It's like, this is like the coolest place in the world, you know? And now what I've really come to realize is there's an element, and I love Bradley County. I think, you know, on the record and off the record, everybody would say you would be hard pressed to find somebody who loves this town as much as I do. I'm a big evangelist for it. I think it's wonderful. I'm part of all of the initiatives that I can possibly be a part of. And my goal is, you know, always, you know, one day when I pass from this earth, I hope people say, like, this guy came down from the north and he wouldn't quit until we embraced him. Like, he refused, and he left this place better. Like, this is a better, Cleveland is better because Rob Alderman was here, right?
That's good.
And it is also true that now I see a part of Cleveland that I think when you move here from somewhere else, you don't see. And you kind of start to understand, right? Like, through the eyes of my children, I've started to say, like, oh, okay, here's where our deep issues are. Here's where the kids of Cleveland and Bradley County, they see these things and it grieves them. And so they can't wait to get away, because when you're a kid, you really, let's face it, like, you don't feel like you have any power. You don't have any way to constructively change things. And so it is our natural tendency as a child to say, well, I'm getting out of here. I hate this. I'm going to get out of here, because you don't really know how to make it better, right? You don't know how to make it better. And so now I kind of, like, I have a much more measured view, I think, of, like, what we do great here and what we don't do great. And so, like, trying at this stage of my life to lean into those parts of what I can constructively be a part of changing and making better. And that's really why we made the Facebook group to begin with, you know.
I love it that the root of what you just said came from learning from your kids and their experiences, because that changes us forever. We say that a bunch. I've
yeah.
learned, like I pride myself on learning as a teacher. I think it's,
Of course,
you can't teach unless you're still learning.
Yeah.
And that is very dear to my heart. But I tell you what, my 3 boys have opened some places up in me, my mind, my heart, my whole very being, where I just thought, man, I never even considered that. But now I have to. I'm forced to.
Right, yeah.
And so it's interesting. So what was it that actually brought you to Cleveland? Was it school? Was it a job?
Yeah. I came down because I had a friend who was coming to Lee Day, and his car broke down. So he asked my mom if she would drive him, and she didn't want to drive by herself, so she asked me if I would go. And so
how many of these stories start like this? Never intended.
Yeah, so I rode down with my mom, and while I was just like running around the campus being an idiot, looking around, my mom was very intentionally looking at the educational programs and the social things at Lee. And then it was, her and my dad basically said, this looks real good. You ought to consider going. And so I left Indiana University and came here.
I got here in the fall of 95 to Lee University. When did you get here?
Yeah, I would have been here in 93.
Okay.
94, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So same time frame.
Whenever Ellis Hall burned down, I was in that dorm. So whatever year that was.
So if I say the name Chris Doan as RA and Ellis Hall.
He was my RA.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. You said you guys like stories. You
we
like
love
this.
stories.
You like Chris?
Please. Can I say that he was the last boyfriend of my wife?
Oh, that's
before
amazing.
we met and got married?
I like that.
And then now we're friends even today, and he has been our assistant principal. So yes.
Yeah, I'll say this.
Chris
First things first, for when you hear this, donor, listen to me. I love you.
Love the preface.
So I was, and he'll back this up. I'm not even today, right? A lot of who we are is just who we are, right? And I do think we can change a lot. We could change a lot about who we are, but there's sort of like this structural DNA in who you are, even as a child. People who knew you as a child would say, he was always like that. And I am not bad, but I am mischievous.
Okay.
And so I was so as a freshman, I was given to Doan. Chris Doan was my resident director, or my resident assistant director. And my room was right across from Doan's room. And I would do everything I could to antagonize him. This is great. Like, I hope he listens to this, actually, because think of how funny this is about what you know of Doan, and what you know of me.
Mm-hmm.
I would knock on his door at like 3 a.m, challenging him to a pull-up contest. But I couldn't. But here's what was funny is
That's a strong dude.
So I couldn't do any pull-ups, not even one. But I knew that he couldn't stand. He was so competitive.
Yeah.
And he was so sleepy that every single time I would make him go first. So he would wake up in the middle of the night. He knows he's got class in the morning, and he would come out in the hallway in front of everybody. I'm yelling, "Doan!" He would right about 2, 3 in the morning. Doan, get up!
He's obligated.
And
He's
I would
an
tell
RA.
him, like,
he has to get
I'm
up.
banging on his door, and I'm like, I've been working out, and I'd like have on like a tank top, and I'd be flexing, and I'm like, you go first. So he'd get up and he'd do all these push-up or pull-ups, and then I'd walk over and I'd touch the top of the door, and I'd go, "Oh, you win again." And he'd be infuriated. So I did that kind of stuff to him all the time.
How many times did that work?
Oh man, every time. That's what I'm saying. That's what's so funny is every single time. I remember one night I had gone into the bathroom and I'd unscrewed the shower heads and I'd packed Kool-Aid into the shower heads.
Let's make sure everybody knows these are communal restrooms.
Yeah, this is a dorm restroom. So
you're not just ruining your
so I
your
went
roommate, you're ruining everybody.
So I went in and I just put this this Kool-Aid, me and another kid did, in the shower heads, and then screwed them back on.
Oh my word.
And that was when Chris was rushing Pi Kappa Pi.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes in like, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and he's just, I don't know what they were doing, I have no
He's
idea
sworn to
what
secrecy.
they're
That's
sworn
right.
to secrecy. No one can know. Don't, just so you know, I'm not telling any of your secrets. But he came in through the fire escape and he's just covered in mud and he's exhausted. And he walks in his room and I'm sitting in the hallway and we're like, what's up, Doan? And he doesn't say anything. He goes in his room and he comes back out in a towel and he walks right past us into the bathroom. And we're just sitting there. And the next thing I hear is this like squeak, like the sound of the water trying. And I had forgotten totally what we did. And then I hear this like whoosh.
Love it.
And he comes walking out. He's still covered in mud. He still looks horrible, but he has this huge purple, like it looks like someone's painted his head with purple paint. And he walks and he doesn't even look at me and he just goes, I hate you. He walked in his room. So I say all that to say, I'll wrap this part of the story up with when his brother, Aaron Doan, his younger brother, showed up. I don't know how I met him, but I met him almost immediately. And his brother is just like me. His brother is one of the most mischievous dudes I've ever known in my life. And so we walk into the dorm. I don't even really realize that Chris is his brother. And Chris sees us walking together and he goes, no, please, no, not Rob Alderman. Please don't.
Oh,
Rob Alderman.
I love it.
But I'm great friends with his brother to this day and him. So I love you, Doan, if you're listening.
Well, I need you to know that I was an RD in Hughes Hall. So, I mean, like these shenanigans that you're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah,
you know them.
for
You
sure.
know them all.
For sure.
You know them all.
Can we go to the night of the fire and ask you
Sure.
how that went down for you?
Well, I was awake. I was one of the people who was awake. In actuality, like the interesting thing that you just said about being an RD at Hughes Hall was we would go across that parking lot and we would prank Hughes and then Hughes would prank us and then we would prank Hughes. And what I used to do is I would sneak into your dorm and I would unplug your intercom system. You guys had this intercom system that had all these buttons and we thought it was really fancy. You could like push a button and it would actually make a noise in the room of the kid who, this is big time technology,
Yeah.
So I would unplug it and then I would tape all the buttons down. And then I would,
that's more than mischievous.
And then I would plug it in and I would go sit on our doorstep and I would watch all the lights come on, And so we were like doing that kind of stuff that night, several of us. And when the fire alarm went off, I thought that it was Hughes Hall guys pulling our fire alarm. Like that was pretty normal. It was pretty normal. And so I ran down the hall and there's probably 5 of us that were awake that night, just goofing off in the TV room, that kind of thing. I ran down the hall.
Did you go to class ever?
Not a lot.
You can come back to that one, but okay.
I was smart enough to get most of my classes not in the morning.
Okay, there you go. That's wise.
But I ran down the hallway thinking I was chasing down Hughes Hall guys that were in our dorm. And it's interesting the things that stick with you because, of course, there's so much I don't remember about that night, even having been awake. But I remember the frosted glass and like the orange glow through the frosted glass, even as I threw the door open. It was like, that's strange. And I threw the door open and we were like yelling, we got you, something like that. And instead it was fire, and in fact, it was so much when the oxygen hit that fire, when all the doors opened, it like burnt the blood vessels in my face. I looked like I had a bruised face for like a few days because it was just like the heat, it was horrific. It was a terrible. It was a terrible thing, and the fact that nobody died is unbelievable. It is a miracle. So yeah, that was an intense night, that you never forget. And obviously I'm still friends with most of the guys that I was in that dorm with. And, very thankful to be alive. We were talking earlier about the, you having come from here and you being a transfer, so to speak. And that was really, that is when I first got here, the thing I wasn't really prepared for was how much local people disliked Lee students. It didn't occur to me, because it wasn't reciprocal, right? It's a one-sided fight. It's like
Sure.
people who were here, and I'm not judging anyone, however old they are, whatever. We like the things we like, we hate the things we hate, these kind of things.
Mhm.
But there was no version of like, hey, we're a bunch of Lee kids, let's go stir up the locals. Nobody at Lee was like, man, yeah, let's take it to Bradley County. We were just happy. Like we were
Yeah.
just like, we're glad to be
Yeah.
at Lee.
Did you go cruise the strip?
And maybe once or twice,
And then it's like, what are these locals doing? We're going back to campus.
Yeah. And so, but there were weird things that happened in retrospect. Like one night we were at where the Wendy's is now. Was it a Schlotsky's maybe? I don't remember. It might have even been a Wendy's all the way back then.
Where is
But
the Wendy's on 25th?
Wendy's on 25th.
Yeah, it would
right
have
there
been
on
a
the
Wendy's.
corner. And we were there, and a group of guys pulled up next to us in a car, and they said, "Are you guys from Lee?" And we were like, "Yeah." Like shot at our car like with a gun, and I was like, "That's real." I remember calling my mom and saying like, "Some guys like shot my buddy's car with a gun." They were like, "You guys suck," they like drove away. And so there was
Lord.
there's that kind of like weird tension at that time that I'm so glad I don't see now, or I don't see it much,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was this very intense sort of time that then culminated with guys, coming in and burning the dorm down, and
Yeah.
of course that was terrible, and dangerous. And I don't I'm not saying like people in Cleveland are this way or people in Bradley County are this way. The arsonists were who they were, and
Sure.
and so, but it was an intense time of my
Matt, speak
life.
to that because I got here at Fall '95 and it felt like a bubble. And when you got outside that bubble, no one ever shot at my car. Oh my
It was
word,
weird.
man.
That's what I'm saying. It was
Yeah.
really crazy. It was
Yeah.
like the first time I had to go with my friends to like file a police report.
Yeah.
And I'm young and I'm like, this is weird. I'm from Gary. Like people get murdered in Gary, but nobody ever shot at my car,
Yeah.
What was that vibe like growing up?
Well-
you're a little younger than us, but
Yeah, I'm younger than you, but it was a real thing, and it's one of the worst. If we started naming off of the people that are like me that lived here, grew up here, Southern Baptist,
sure.
it's a very small way of thinking, and it's not like the entire South Bradley County is plagued with this thing, but the ones that are, they're rough characters, man, and they're often teenagers that are turned loose with this ideology. They don't know where it came from, and
Right.
it's bad. It's incorrect. They probably heard some tough guy sitting at the house, 40 years old, talking about how things we used to hear. Oh, that Church of God college. There's more dope down there than there is anywhere in Cleveland.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the kind of stuff that you hear all over the place, and whether that's true or not, it's not true, but. It is a university. I mean, I'm sure we could go through there somewhere and find someone misbehaving.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But as far as
they were on my basketball team and they didn't make it, and that's why we lost lots of games.
as far as Lee, it became the most sad to me when you and I went to the monument and just sat and just watched.
Mm.
I just wanted to watch people behave. People that I had known my entire life
Yes,
were just saying things that weren't true. I told somebody the other day, I remember a guy yelling across the street from the monument to some protesters and saying, "George Soros bust you in." And I was like, all right, hang on. Like, I went to elementary school with that guy. Like, he's been here the whole time. He lives right across the tracks. But the people driving by, the people throwing birds out the window and the FUs and the racist remarks and this and that, those were those people. Now, I refuse to say that those people represent me or I represent those people.
Yeah, of course.
But dadgummit, man. Like, this isn't a us versus them kind of thing. But so many people want to make it that. But I think now it seems as less of a thing because there's so many of you guys around that are raising families here, and
Yeah.
Those families have gone to school here. They've been raised up in probably in a church here, and um, times how many? I mean,
Yeah.
how many of you guys exist?
I remember that around that time with the monument, you know,
Mhm.
and we had just begun to grow as a Facebook group. You know, it had
Sure.
really started taking off,
Hmm.
and I was I'm editing myself. I'm trying to think of how to say this. I was I was in a conversation with somebody that a lot of people would know.
Okay.
Okay. And this person said to me, I feel like I'm watching my two children fighting.
Mm.
Hmm.
And I don't, I don't feel like that at all. I said, I feel like I'm watching one of our children kneel quietly in the grass. And I'm watching another one of our children like attack them with a German Shepherd, which is like what I saw the time
Yeah.
I was there, right?
Yeah.
And you know, people get mad at me for saying things sometimes. You know, I'm unfortunately visible, and then
Sure.
unfortunately visible.
Sure. It goes both ways.
But I did say at that time, I said, you know what? I'm going to push even harder for this group to be a place of kindness, for this Facebook group.
Yeah.
Like I want what's happening in Cleveland to be kind, kind, kind.
Hmm.
And if that were to happen again, if that sort of thing were to happen again, I really do believe that like this group of people, like right, like think about it this way. Think about it this way. Like you just said, you said those people don't represent you,
That's right.
right? Well, guess what? They don't represent 99.9%
No.
of the people in this town.
No, they don't.
Right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is that stereotype isn't actually representative of this town. And I think if that were to happen again, I think that tiny amount of people that are screaming these things and attacking people and doing these things, they're going to be really surprised that like the people of Cleveland and Bradley County aren't for that anymore. They're not
Yeah.
like you know, you kind of got away with it
Yeah.
once. Like we were all surprised. Whoa, when will this chill out?
Yeah.
And now it's like I don't think we would see that again. You know,
Yeah.
I hope we wouldn't. I don't know, but that's really when I leaned in. I mean, I really I leaned into that thinking, you know, yes, have your opinion
Mhm.
about what you want to do with a monument, how you feel about it, what you want to do with it. And yes, speak your opinion,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know how many people who listen to your podcast are or are not Christian, right? I happen to be
Mhm.
as part of like that DNA. And so for me, when the scriptures say be angry but sin not, I take that really seriously. And
Yeah.
that was like a lot of what I was talking about just recently with this most recent thing on the Facebook group, right?
Mhm.
Was like saying, yeah, have your opinions, but if we're going to continue to devolve into fighting with one another, it's not constructive for anyone. That's not actually it's not free speech. Like free speech is an issue with which the government does or does not squelch the people,
Sure.
right?
Mhm.
Um, if I came to your home tonight and I walked into it, Rob, it's great to see you, and I just suddenly started screaming about things that you know you disagree with, you have if you tell me to leave, you have not impeded upon my free speech at all,
No.
right? And so that was kind of what I was trying to get across in that Facebook
Yeah.
group was to say like this has clearly become an unproductive conversation
Absolutely.
that's devolving into being unkind and unneighborly. And anyone on either side of this, you know, and then what we're talking about, I just realized we haven't said it, is Charlie Kirk,
Mhm.
right? Everyone will know that, like everyone who's listening to the podcast, just so you guys know, like that was the subject matter. Whether or not you were a pro or an anti Charlie Kirk person is no longer the concern in a group whose number one focus is to be kind.
Mm-hmm.
It is not about like your feelings. It's about how are you expressing yourself?
Yeah.
And what will we dedicate this group to being? Because you can go be pro or anti Charlie Kirk anywhere you want, to the extreme that you want, to the degree you can go be on some radicalized side that says this was a great thing, which I think that's horrible.
Yeah.
And then you could go all the way on the other side where you could be radicalized and say like that this is and I've seen this, that his assassination is like cause for war. Like this, historically people treating this like the next Franz Ferdinand, right? And so you could go to either extreme, right?
Yeah.
And those can be your beliefs. And I believe in America and your right to hold extreme beliefs. And I also believed in that moment in my right to say, you know what, guys, I don't see us being kind to one another anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So take that conversation to those extreme places where you want to have that conversation.
Curiosity question. So between, your ambition of having a kind Facebook page.
Yeah.
Love it. But that's ambitious.
Yeah.
But
I told you
it.
I'm ambitious.
Yeah.
I was talking to you about my son
I love
earlier.
it.
I said he's
Yeah.
ambitious. Yeah. And I want to tell you, it's moments like these that test that ambition. And
it defines what ambition really is. It's not just
that's
a goal.
right.
Yeah, it's something more.
Yeah, I think I was definitely, people were calling me a coward, because I had said, hey, we're not going to do this here,
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say that, like, I don't know, at your job or around 300 people or around 10 people. It's another thing when you're saying it to 40,000 of your neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we were having that joke earlier where I said I'm the unofficial pastor of the largest unofficial church in Cleveland. But when I did my Facebook Live that night, I was so calm, right? I had actually been at Cleveland State all day working Geekster that day. And I got to Jenkins and someone told me, like, man, you are taking a beating on the internet. I didn't even know I'd been having such a great day.
Yeah, and I had lost the conversation by then. I didn't. It wasn't until you were live that I realized, golly bum.
And I felt
Did you just
so
say you were having such a great day?
calm. Oh yeah, it was such a good day. And I got to Jenkins, and I'm sitting there and I'm eating, and I began to look through all of it.
Uh-huh.
And I did something I don't normally do, but I felt so calm. I began responding to every person, which I normally don't do. I need to say, and then I let people feel how they feel about it. And I began responding, and it was amazing how many people were saying, like, people were actually saying, like, I love what you do to feed the homeless and help people at Christmas, but because you won't let us fight about Charlie Kirk, I'm out. I'm quitting. I'm out of this group. And I was like, I felt this peace come over me, and I was like, go with God. Like, go find that corner of the internet that you need. Like, and this is kind of, I don't want to sound sarcastic. I hope that I'll sound pragmatic and not sarcastic. Okay. I told you earlier, I've confessed to being mischievous. There's a little bit of like, I encourage you to go find that group that you're looking for and see if it also scratches your feed the homeless and take care of people at Christmas itch, right? See if it, what have we know, right? We already know at this point, ready? Like, we know that this group feeds thousands of people between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Thousands, not 1,000, not 500, thousands, right? We do that. We know that when we got the list of how many children don't have a bed in Bradley County, that we built those beds. They've been built, actually. The latest bed build had to happen in Chattanooga because guess what? Ours have beds.
Yeah, I saw
right?
that.
So the point I'm getting at is like, if you've decided that this is where you're at, you need to leave this group. Cool, okay. And that's why I started responding to everybody. And so I was responding to everyone, and I thought, I'll just get on tonight and I'll address this because some of the people who are saying these things about me, that I'm a coward, I don't have a backbone, these things, I like them. And so I'm going to respond to them from the place of truth that I like them. So I thought that's better done on a Facebook Live. And so I just, and this is where you were talking about resolve, ambition.
Mm-hmm.
When you get live and you realize, okay, this is the name of my Facebook Live was "Let's Talk About Not Talking About Charlie Kirk." And I saw that number going up. Hundreds and hundreds of people are watching. I'm like, okay. I said, like, some of you think I don't have a backbone, but I will posit this. Is it possible that I have more of a backbone to stand true to what our group is than to let it run however it wants? And those are the moments, and we've had those. We had those when the teacher over at the middle school was had the camera in the girls' bathroom.
Cleveland Middle School.
So we've
that
had the
be my
monument.
curiosity. So go back to the Confederate monument. Let's go to Charlie Kirk and everything in between. How many times have you had to go on that page and go, "Hey, friends, this ain't that"? Handful, 10 more? Because I mean, it's going to take something legit, for people to like just not stop.
So when we started,
can I say one more thing? Hold on.
Sure, yeah.
Because I teach sociology and history, I bring this up a bunch. That whole idea that on social media you can say something, but like how many of those folks came and knocked on that door downstairs and said, "Hey, let me say something to your face"?
Oh, sure, none of them.
Okay, of course they didn't. So I mean, like that's in this too. If we're going to define what kindness is and define what this page is, I mean, it needs to be consistent of what kindness truly is.
I think so. My answer would be we started the page kind of in the pandemic, and so you have to understand we haven't been around long enough to have like tens of times.
That's
right?
fair. Yeah.
So in during the pandemic and the two rules when we first started, because of course the rules have evolved over time, where we're not going to talk about who you vote for, and we're not going to talk about if you're vaccinated or not. And the reason was because personally, I believe neither of those two things will change based on a conversation on the internet, right? So it's like there's nobody who's going to convince you to get a vaccination or not get a vaccination on the internet.
We need to make that list sometime. How did you just phrase that? Give it up to me one more time.
Not who you vote for.
Yeah.
And whether or not you're vaxxed or not.
Will never change.
That will never change based on a conversation on the internet.
On the internet. Okay. Yeah, we're going to make that list sometime.
And so that's where it started. And then the subset was be kind and neighborly. That was all I started with. Like that was the framework. And what was crazy was to watch the group grow. I think the first night I had 100 people, and I was like, man, that's wild. And then my phone was getting these notifications, bing, 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 bing. And it was like from 100 to 500 within 24 hours. And then it was like 1,000, and then it was like 2,000. And we had all these rules, right? You have to be from here, right? We vet every person. You either have to have lived here before and prove it, be moving here and prove it, or be here now, right? Yeah. So we're cool. Like if you want to follow the group and you live somewhere else, but you used to live here, be a part of the group. Like, if you can prove you're moving here and you just want to know what so we started with those.
We're trying to figure out that number 40,000, considing, what'd you say, 36,000 live in the city
I think the city limits. But you're talking about
it was a fun number.
It's 48,000 in the county, I think.
Are you talking about total?
Yeah, adults.
Oh, broken down to adults. I don't know the answer to that.
Everybody,
but
it's 100,000.
So, anyways,
but anyway, I just
I don't know. You're the sociologist.
No,
so it was taken off, and then what began happening was then there were like these copycat sites, and so I would start getting these messages from people that are like, "I can't believe you say you're kind, but this thing," and I would just have to say, "That's not our group. That's not our group." If you go online right now, you'll find there's like a "What's Happening Cleveland" TN, which is me. Then you'll find there's like a "What's Happening in Cleveland, Tennessee." Yeah. That's not me. You'll find like
"What's Up Cleveland,
like
Tennessee."
"What's Up Cleveland." That's not me.
That's that Church of God split, isn't it?
I'll tell you.
And there's about 6 of them in town.
The truth is this. I had this thing I said to Dan back in the day, and then Dan said it to Dennis, who really does our giveaways and our things now, that I never knew how angry people could be at me until I was feeding the homeless.
Yeah.
Right. Like the idea, that old phrase, "no good deed goes unpunished," is wild. It's like, today today we were posting about the fact that we're building we're helping to build, I don't want to say we're building, but along with the Rogers family, we're going to be funding a homeless food kitchen. Okay. That's going to be awesome, you guys. It's going to be so great. We all know, if you don't know yet, the Salvation Army's having to move, and like that back kitchen isn't going to be usable, and there's just a lot going on. And so we're building this kitchen where people are going to be able to come and get meals every day. And the first comment was, why can't we build a community garden? Right? And it wasn't like, awesome, homeless people here. No. And it's not, and so the truth is, like, this thing you're talking about, the resolve and how many times these things come up, it's like, it's not a lot, because we started in that. And then we had to definitely double down on that this last election cycle, while also giving people room to talk about our local politicians, right? We do on our local politicians. So our rules there are, you are allowed to talk, if you're a local politician, you are allowed to talk about yourself and your platform. You are not allowed to talk about your opponent. You know what I'm saying? And so, that resolve, that like ambitiousness, it paid off in that we came up with like what we call the pillars, right? And the pillars are like philanthropy, right? We will be philanthropic within our community. The next goal was like arts. Like a thriving community pours into its arts, and it has like interesting things to do. And then our third piece is a moderated community, right? And what a lot of people don't really understand, I can tell you this, I think you will find this interesting, maybe not. Whether you do or you don't like Elon Musk, there's a moment in which he affects this trajectory for me. Okay. I'm in Cleveland. I'm already creating businesses, and I'm already doing philanthropy, and I'm assisting people with certain things. And that's a good life, and I'm enjoying it. And we hit this vaccine COVID place, and my wife is a nurse, and she's just gotten out of nursing school, and she's over at the hospital, and people are like screaming at her like, it's fake. And she's coming home, and she's like, I wish those people like saw the 10 dead people that I had to try to help today, and it's crazy. It's like a world on fire, right? Everything is going crazy. And you got people like, I can't believe you're wearing a mask. And other people are like, I can't believe you're not wearing a mask. And everything's crazy. And in the middle of that, this kind of gets missed somewhere in that. I've started this little group, and it's growing, and I've got a tiger by the tail. And at some point, Russia invades Ukraine. Okay. So we forget that that's been a while now. Like, that's actually been going on for a bit. And someone tweets at Elon Musk, and they say, you're up there flying around in space. Someone from Ukraine tweets at Elon Musk, you're flying around in space, and we don't even have the internet. And it pulls up on my Twitter feed. And his response was, give me 6 hours. Okay. Within 6 hours, they're airdropping the internet to Ukraine. And this is really important, by the way, from a history perspective.
No, I'm tracking.
So from a history perspective, it's fascinating because you have an entrepreneur, right? And he sees a need. It's just brought to his attention on Twitter. Of all the tweets that are tweeted at Elon Musk, that one gets through that day. And so he drops the internet to Ukraine. So like, when we think about this inevitable, how was it that Russia did not just overrun Ukraine? Why? There's a lot of reasons why, and I'll leave that to you guys as teachers to get into that. But I can tell you one thing. The Ukrainians had internet and the Russians did not. So the Russians were like, right? And so it's not weird that all of a sudden we start seeing all these coordinated attacks, and they're like, we just blew up like every Russian tank. And it was like, well, yeah, because they're just emailing each other now with this thing. So this is in the early days, and I'm not trying to tell anybody what they should feel about Russia or Ukraine or who's good or who's bad. I'm just saying Rob Alderman, in the midst of this Facebook group, sees that and thinks, after helping all of these nonprofits, right? That my company helps all the time. Like every nonprofit in this town has been a client of my agency at one point or another.
Huh.
And it always stinks when the director of a nonprofit knows the need and then can't get their board of directors to agree, right? So I see this tweet and I think, right, like there was no board of directors to tell Elon Musk no. He walked over to someone and said, you're going to have to shut down the Tesla line today. No more tires because we need to like spend that money on fuel for the helicopters that are going to drop internet into Ukraine. Okay. It's like bizarre when you think about it. And they were like, what? Now you can think that's good or bad. You can think good or bad about Elon Musk. That's a powerful, it's powerful in its scope, but narrow it down, make it smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just you and your ability to do good in the moment that you see it. So I walked right over to my lawyer and my accountant and I said, I want to do that. What is that? How do I do that? And they said, oh, that's called a philanthropic profit. And you'll make money, but your product, like just like McDonald's makes money and then they use that money to serve hamburgers, you'll make money and the money will be used to feed the homeless. And I said, okay, but I don't want a board of directors. They're like, no, you're guided by the exact same laws, right? I have to pay my taxes, right? I have to pay my taxes the way you're supposed to. So I file my taxes just like anybody else does. And so instead, what I do is we have group sponsors, which are businesses, not because of their money, but because of their desire to assist our community. So we get connected with businesses and then they pay, right? And then we also open up to this group of people, 40,000 people. And we say, we're going to feed this family. This has come onto our radar. Someone has tweeted at us that their air conditioner has gone out in the middle of the summer and they have two kids, right?
Yeah.
2 babies. And they have it's 100 degrees outside. They don't have an air conditioner. We're going to do this. And now people just, I'm in, right?
Yeah.
And so that was like where this whole, so when you talk about my resolve or like my ambitiousness, yes, I am ambitious for a community that wants to be kind.
Yeah.
And so I don't, somebody, one story, I guess it kind of goes along with this was, somebody, I don't know if you guys have ever interviewed Senator Adam Lowe. He and I have been along, but you should.
He's been on the show.
Okay, cool. And, we worked his campaign back in the day, but more than that, we've been friends for a long time. And he told me someone came to him. We were having to install a heater that was under a house in the not so great part of town here. And we knew that people didn't have the money. We also knew that the landlord was not involved. It was not going to get fixed. They had 2 sick kids. And so immediately the people go into action. We have Bradley Barter and Pawn is like, we're going to deliver space heaters until we can get the new heater in. And, we've got Takata Brooks over here with Air Systems Unlimited. We're going to figure out how to get under there and fix it. We got people donating and all this. And this guy goes to Adam and he says like, I cannot believe that Rob Alderman has asked for money to do this. And I love Adam so much, and I love him for moments like this. He said, well, did Rob put the heater in the house? Yes. Did you give any money to it? No. Well, it sounds like we don't have anything else left to talk about. Right?
He's told me that story.
That's all we have to talk about, right?
Yep.
And so there have been these other moments of resolve when people have pushed me to become a nonprofit. Or in particular, when people say, where's the money going? Tell me where this money is going. And I'm like, well, we take pictures of everything we do, but we are a philanthropic profit. We can't do things if we don't make money. Like we have to make money in order to meet these needs. And that's not just me saying capitalism works. Like it's way more complicated than that. I am obviously an entrepreneur. I'm a freedom of speech guy. I'm a pro-capitalism guy. But I do think there's like unhealthy capitalism in the world too. Like I'm really pro-healthy capitalism. right? I don't think it's like healthy for like rich people to prey on the weak. I think that's unhealthy. I don't think we should support. I don't think the Bible supports that, right? And so as a group, like that's really the testing of the resolve is those moments. They're like, yes, we've had the monument. Yes, we had the election cycles. Most recently, this moment with Charlie Kirk. Definitely the thing over at the middle school. And I'm sorry, I don't remember which middle school. I could drive us there right now. Cleveland Middle. Right. Those have been massive moments for our community where we've just had to say, hey guys, yes, we will post updates about this. You know, Charlie Kirk's a good example. Yeah, of course, we're going to let you know where the Charlie Kirk Memorial Walk is and when it's going to be.
Sure.
No, we're not going to open up the comments for everybody to like blow up at one another. You know, those are those moments. So I would say, you know, 5-6 times probably.
Well, what I'm hearing you say through that was like, there are personal rights. You believe in them.
100%. I would fight for them.
And there is communal responsibilities. And that's what's
right.
That's what's embedded in the Constitution.
Yeah,
we're going to
100%,
guarantee some things, but like we're in this together for sure.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
The people stuff.
Yeah.
But we're in that moment in this episode where, Matt, I'm about to go there. You just described this communal.
I'm like looking at you both like I'm about to go there. I'm like, oh,
he knows
okay.
Well, me and you are going to learn together.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm going to say the phrase and then you.
Okay.
You just described being this. You can call it a spearhead. You can call it a facilitator. You can call it whatever you want.
Sure, yeah.
You can call it the owner-operator of a Facebook page.
But
sure. You are that connected in this town that you, my friend, did not grow up in. So can I go talk to that kid that hops in the car with his mama who is driving to Cleveland just to be another person and ask that kid, oh my word, you see into the future and it's this guy sitting in front of me right now. What in the world is that dude thinking? You knew that was coming. Right?
I knew that was coming.
What's that dude see? And you, what's he think? What's he gonna say to you? What's his response? Like what in the world?
The kid?
Yeah, what's the kid?
He's probably pissed off that I didn't go play rock and roll. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. You know, that kid was ambitious.
Yeah. But you have played some rock and roll.
I have. Yeah, I have. I think. Yeah, I have. And more than most, I think. You know, when you think about like the one that got away, it was like I had that career. I was actually most suited. I feel like maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe I'm wrong. Time will tell. And maybe people will say Rob thought he was suited for this, but he was clearly suited for this.
I mean, is that kid like, is he content? Is he psyched? Is he bummed? What's he seeing you?
Oh, sure. I feel like...
Is he just happy that things worked out?
I don't think he could even... That kid couldn't comprehend. He couldn't comprehend me staying here. Right. I was definitely at Lee. I was most likely to go to New York and be out of here or go back to Chicago.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm heading back to Charleston, South Carolina.
You know, and so
other plans.
Like that kid was just learning to go on tour and play music and be on stage. And I think like we talked earlier at the beginning of this about like our genetic DNA. I do think that kid would look at me now and be like, it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like, but we have our platform. We have our megaphone, and we did it without being a politician. We thought we were going to be a rock star, right? We were for a little bit, you know, but we had some things to say. Like even that kid had some things to say.
I was about to ask you, did you have a voice back then as a young fella?
Yeah. I mean, I think we all have our inherent superpowers, you know, and my wife says this about me. My wife, obviously, like the more beautiful, smarter, wiser one, right? In our marriage. I definitely married up, like by a ton.
You're talking to the right guys.
And she says this. She says that my superpower is that I give people permission.
Tell me more.
I have the ability to say, we will. I always hated these prayers. Like when I was younger, I've had to learn how to mature into this prayer. For those of you who aren't Christian or who maybe didn't grow up the way I did in charismatic kind of circles, there's this like, we're going to pray for somebody who has cancer. And then we're going to pray and we're going to say like, God, heal this person, heal this person, heal this person. And then inevitably somebody loses their nerve and they say like, if it's your will, like God, if you think it's cool, heal this person. And as a kid, that would get under my, I mean, what? What are you saying? Like, of course it's his will. Like we don't really know the will of God. Like I've matured since then.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about that definitive belief. We will. That's what she means. And so like, whatever it is that we're going to put our mind to, if you are down by 3, and it is the bottom of the 9th, and the bases are loaded, and you absolutely need someone to bring it home, to believe, to will into existence the win. That's my superpower. And it was my superpower on stage when I play songs. I think it is my superpower when I go live on a Facebook. And I say like, I was so sad that like all the people who left didn't get that moment where I could say, I see you. Like, I see you. I see why you're angry and I see why you're afraid. I want to affirm it. I want to affirm everything about you. And also, we will not behave this way. We won't.
Yeah.
If we're going to build a kitchen for the homeless, then by God, we will. And like, we're not going to say, okay, God, maybe. Like we will put it on our shoulders and we will find a way and we will get the money and we will build it and we will do the thing, right? And it hasn't been the most, I think there are other worlds where I could have sacrificed that to just go make a lot of money. Like I did really well in the corporate world being that guy. Like CEOs love to have me around. Like they love to be like, well, I wish we could. And have me be like, we will. Like, what do you mean? Wish we could. Right? They love that. And that was really profitable for me to like be that guy. Or if a company is in trouble and they are in crisis PR, I'm great in crisis. You know, I've worked in my time being here, there have been 2 active shooters in Cleveland, Bradley County, and I worked them both. You know, I worked when Cleveland State lost their nursing license, like all that. I mean, I worked multiple rapes and murders when I was the vice president of, or the director of communication at Life Care Centers of America. Like I've been in those moments, right, where you have to say to a bunch of people, like, stop, breathe. This has happened, but we will. Like, we'll do that. So I think that's what it's that, right? And so I think younger me would say, like, okay, it doesn't look like a rock and roll stage, but it's this like, how could we? Okay, at the risk of canceling myself, because we're being, maybe we'll cut this later. Maybe we won't.
You can call it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How could anyone celebrate the assassination of another human being? Anyone, anybody, right? And it is also true. How could anyone be for free speech and not adamantly defend their right to celebrate the assassination of the guy who said free speech was the pillar upon which America was built? Like, it's crazy. You look around, right? And so, like, I want to be that voice that says, like, no, like, we don't celebrate. That's gross. We don't celebrate. That's gross.
Yeah.
And we don't weaponize against the people who did something gross.
That's right.
Like somebody's got to remain, right? Does that make sense? And it's like, listen, I get it. Some people, we deal a lot with social media algorithms, and I don't know, like, about what I just said. Like, it's wrong that I even have to be afraid to say that.
Well, it's
Like,
your
does that
third
make
pillar,
sense?
though, isn't it? Remember you talked about your
A well-moderated
three pillars?
community.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what you're doing. You are being
Yeah.
that voice. It's what we
Yeah.
do in a classroom because, I mean, for criminal justice and for U.S. history,
Yeah.
especially in times like this, like, I want kids to find their voice. They're on the threshold of adulthood, and they're going
That's
to need
right.
to
That's
advocate
right.
for
Yeah.
themselves and for others. And so I want that voice to be heard. And on this other end, it's this voice. And they're discovering
right.
whether that's their family's voice
Yeah.
or their actual something more authentic for them.
That's
I
right.
get to be this person who facilitates that
Yeah.
and brings that all back around to, hey, this isn't usually unprecedented. We can back up a couple times, a couple generations and go, man, there's something that's awfully close to this. And so, but this is ours. This is our generation. This
Yeah.
is our time to
Yeah.
respond.
Think about
and how
those
we
kids.
respond
Yeah,
is-
think
is
about those
important.
kids. Like, to the students who listen to your podcast, I would say this: high school me, Rob, I was kind of a mischievous activist. Like, I was finding my voice even then.
Good trouble kind of guy. Maybe.
Good trouble.
Chris Doan
Yeah,
wouldn't say
yeah,
that,
good
but-
trouble. Well, I think Chris would admit now. but I want to say, like, if you're listening to this, first of all, it's my opinion that you're growing up in a time that is so wild. And you're looking around at the adults and you're saying, I don't see adults in the world behaving responsibly. So why would I, maybe, right?
Mhm.
And I want to say to, like, the kids who are listening to this, like, that's the reason to be reasonable. That's the reason when you look around and you see I want to encourage them, because just like this moment that happened this last week for me, kids, I want you to know, like, I slept like a baby that night because I thought, and then I thought about everyone's opinion and how they felt, right?
Mhm.
And then I decided, no, we have this. This is our pillar. This is what we stay true to. So it's like, find that true north and then, like, stick to it. Even as a kid, I did that.
Yeah.
You
that's a big
know,
deal.
and your voice matters. Like, high school voice matters. Who you are. Like, you're learning. You're right. You're going out in the world and you're figuring out, what's my voice, what's my parents' voice, what's my church's voice, but what is my voice? What do I believe? And, like, it's so valuable to exercise that, right? Like, I'm glad I had parents who, like, let me
Mhm.
exercise that voice, and teachers. Dude, my teachers loved me, but I know I was a pain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, we know you. We have those in class.
Yeah.
So, right,
There's
yeah.
not a semester that
But
goes
man,
by.
I wouldn't be who I was without my high
Sure.
school teachers, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. Love to hear it.
So like, your voice is so important. And we look around right now, and how could any reasonable person look at the other side of the political aisle as the enemy? I could look at them as my brother or sister who I disagree with.
Yeah.
But, like, I was telling somebody this, we are not the first society to be divided in the way that we are, even in America, right? We've had the Civil War,
Yeah.
right? We've had Vietnam. Like, we've had these moments in our history as a country, right?
Mhm.
And so we've been divided before. And I think a lot of people want to pass that off right now as saying, well, we've been divided like this before, so we'll be fine, without thinking about, like, what is different or how we made it through those
Yeah,
times.
that's
And
right.
I want to say this, like, as a media guy, I run a media company, so consume media. When you look at the media from those times, what you actually still see are people struggling through their differences, but language is important, right? It's not just semantics. We use language to position ourselves in the world, right? That's why we were just talking about, to these kids listening to the podcast, like, your voice matters, right? And the reason it matters is it's positioning you to do good or bad in society, right? Or nothing, which I would categorize as bad. When I consume media from these other times, right, I see people striving and striving and striving to call themselves an American. And I don't see that now. Not much. I see people striving and striving to call themselves a conservative, or striving and striving to call themselves a liberal, or striving and striving to call themselves a Republican, or striving and striving to call themselves a Democrat or a libertarian.
Yeah.
Right? But it is so important, right? We were losing a unifying language. Like it's the thing that like years from now, the next American history teacher might teach about. And he may say like, there was this like crazy period in America where the word American almost disappeared. And we adopted a language in which we talked about them and us instead of us, right? And I feel like that is what is so important about the kids who are finding their voice now, is like, don't let that language die. Like just because people who are a bit older than you are like not using it. It's like adopt a unifying language where you can look at someone, you can disagree with them and still say like, well, that's this one issue, but we are unified on all of these other issues. Like we are experiencing the world on a very unbalanced scale right now.
What's the power of a shared vocabulary? You know, if we're using the same language, we can stay on the same page.
Absolutely.
And like getting to that place, but who is going to be those people that come along? Who's going to facilitate that? Who's going to parent that way, teach that way, preach that way?
Yeah, for sure.
Invite people in their community into spaces and to be able to like create that even beyond the home and beyond the church and beyond the school.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this is a piece of what we're doing right here as we travel around. Like we started at the Pi Center. And we just wanted to sit. Like we wanted to grab a medium for ourselves and develop some skills. I love interviewing. He has, I don't know if I'd use the word love because you complain about it sometimes, but by golly, this guy has learned a skill set of just being able to set up and making this, like we go mobile with this. And
yeah, it's
so
awesome.
We're doing something for us, but at the same time, I mean, like it's evidence of what we're continuing to be as learners. And but that shared vocabulary that you're mentioning is the difference maker in a generation. Like I don't know how often you talk to, like, and I'm sure you do, but like if I talk to my dad or I talk to my father-in-law, and I remind them when they get really concerned about their grandkids. Yeah. And I talk about, hey, you remember what year you graduated high school, right? And you remember Vietnam was going on, right? Yeah. And you remember Roe v. Wade. That's right. And you remember Nixon is about to quit. Yeah. And I mean, the sexual revolution. That's what I'm saying. We've been through it. Like, guys, we've been through it. So it's that kind of like, you know, Mark Twain, this has been out there, but, you know, the history rhymes. It may not repeat itself. Yeah. It's awfully dang close. Yeah, for sure. And that's what centers me in knowing that, we have been here before, but there also hasn't been a generation that hasn't risen faces and voices to be that, to say these are the words that we're going to anchor into. Yeah. And so I love to hear that from where you're coming from and how you see your world and how you even see Cleveland, you know?
Yeah. I love it here. That was, I think, that was the piece that right now is so important. Mm-hmm.
Hey, what would you say to that kid?
Which kid?
That kid driving in that car. Somehow, some way, you now can communicate to him. What advice are you going to tell him? What story are you going to tell him? What are you saying to him?
Yeah, I think I say to him, it will be lonely but important. And I would probably tell him to study a lot more. You know, I would have, if I could go back in time, I would say like, don't, don't waste your, don't disregard your time under wise men and women. You know,
Mm.
um, it isn't lost on me that my life is unique. Now that like not a lot of people do these things that I do. They feel natural to me, you know, to do. I don't feel like, man, my life's so weird. You know, I don't feel that way.
Yeah, sure.
But I feel like that kid did hope that he would make the world a better place. And I think that like 51-year-old him can say like, we are like we have and we are.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. Like we wanted to and we have and we are. And I don't think we knew the cost that it would take on us. Definitely could have navigated a lot of things better. That's true of anybody.
Sure.
You know.
When you say that word lonely, but you also talk about that beautiful, smart bride of yours, how much of her has been picking the direction of this journey of you? And how much of that is she from here? Is she helped anchor you here?
She's
in this
not
town?
from here. No, I was here first.
Yeah. She come to Lee?
She came from Memphis.
Yeah.
She's brilliant. She has been worked at Life Care Centers of America in their communications department. She's been the director and leader of the museum in Athens. Now she is a medical director at a hospice clinic. I think so. Here's the interesting thing is I think she would say this is funny, but you're asking. So first of all, she's integral to it all, right? If you're a dude who's married, then you're still just like a boy trying to impress a girl.
Hold on, just let that sink in for a second. There's definitely some truth in that, for sure.
Yeah, I think
even after
like
all these years.
Yeah, and I think like we do a whole other podcast about just like kind of masculine presence, right? And like who we become as we get older, and like
you and Jay Adam
how we
Love,
like how we
that one?
Oh Lord, yeah, like how we put on like we wear these blankets or like these coats that like mute everything. Our hurts and our pains like stop us from like living like the little boy that was. Right. What somebody said to me, oh man. All right. This guy would be great to have on your podcast sometime. I don't know if you guys know Jamie Tuttle, Pastor Jamie Tuttle, but he's over at the Dwelling Place Church, dude. He's a wild
Erica
man.
Tuttle's daddy.
Erica Tuttle's dad. That's right. Erica Tuttle.
Erica's one of mine.
Okay.
Joey,
Listen, we're going to film her wedding next month or whatever. So anyways, we love them. We do some work with them. But he said something to me. I told him that he has such a fatherly spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, that's because in every man, there's like a boy who loved applesauce, and somewhere along the line, people said, you can't eat applesauce. You got to eat apples. And I was like, it was so dang profound. I was like, yeah, like there is a kid who's like, every little boy knows applesauce is superior.
Yeah.
Applesauce is superior to eating an apple. But then somebody was like, listen, dude, we'd take away the applesauce, we hand an apple, right? So to get back to my wife, right, though, is she wouldn't resonate. So my wife, she wouldn't resonate, I don't want to put words in her mouth. When I say it is lonely, she would say like, you are not lonely. You are an extrovert. You have a bunch of friends and everybody thinks you're awesome. And I have to live with the real you, and it sucks sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, we do know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think and so like, to clarify the piece where I say it's lonely, even though, you know this, I was just listening to this, you know, the quote about daring greatly, the man in the arena, right? I can have the support, right? So to really quickly run through this, you guys are gonna have to edit so much. I don't even know how long
Not
your
a chance in
podcasts
the
are.
world.
Not even a
But
little.
like,
We run it,
I
man.
don't know
We
how it
run
works.
it.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm trying to get at, right? All right. So there's this amazing quote that's talking about giving credit to the man who's in the arena. Like
Yeah, this is Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt, and even if you lose, right?
Mhm.
Right? That we respect the man who dared greatly, right? So when I say we'll be lonely, I don't mean that I haven't had plenty of wonderful people and friends who have said, you're doing a great job. Like, even all those people who were saying I had no backbone, that I was a coward, or that I hated free speech, or, all these things, even all those people, I could still see the like button going up. That what I
Sure.
had said had
That's right.
resonated, right?
Yeah.
And if I took all the comments that were negative about me, I could look over here and see that, like, the quiet majority
That's right.
had already agreed with me.
Sure.
And they had already said, like, yes, thank
Mhm.
God. We don't want this fighting here. Let's let
Mhm.
it be. That can go happen somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So I do think on that level, I'm not lonely. But I do think you enter that arena alone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's that kid that we talked about deciding, like, I will make a record and I will go on tour and I will try to make a name for myself in music. Like, I had fans and I had friends, but ultimately, right, you're like sleeping on a stranger's couch somewhere and you're playing for 5 people in a coffee shop and then 20 people in a bar and there's a piece of that like even having friends and a support network doesn't touch. It doesn't get to. You can be supported and still be very frightened. Right? I think that's again another thing like men don't want to admit, like their fear of like stepping out or stepping into a thing that they feel like they should do.
Mhm.
My wife has been the most supportive person to my journey that I could imagine. And that hasn't always come with agreement, right? Like I
Mhm.
think
Sure.
like and if you love someone, I don't think you always want them to walk into the arena, right? Like you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like if you love somebody, you may be like, this seems bad. People might get angry.
Well, this is marriage,
this,
but
right?
Yeah.
This is also parenting when we send our kids out into the world.
That's right,
or
yeah.
even before that, I mean, we send them out on a basketball court or on
Yeah.
a football field
Yeah.
or on a date, or to prom. I mean, like
That's right.
it's now on them, and we are this thing that has put so much into it, whether it be our marriage or whether it be our parenting or whether
Yeah.
even friendship sometimes. That's
Yeah,
why I
for
love you
sure.
bringing up that whole, being vulnerable is this courageous act. And like we go to those places and admit, like, this whole idea of being a man is being vulnerable because that is an act of courage. But we've got to be the man who steps into that arena
Yeah.
to fight that good fight, to do that good hard work, to,
Yeah.
to grind this thing out, because someone is going to have to start this.
That's right. Yeah.
Someone's
I
going to
think
have to continue this, and someone's going to
That's
have to
right.
bring it home. Yeah.
There are these moments, all of us experience this, every person, where you look and you see a need and you have to decide, will you step into that space or will you not?
Mhm.
And I'm not judging the people who don't, right? I don't know why they don't. I do think I got here to Cleveland at the right time. Like Cleveland, there have been like these just series of moments where it was like I felt specially built for these moments. Like I told you, like I totally understand. Like if somebody else was getting attacked on the internet, they would get really keyed up. It would feel really bad.
Sure.
But I told you guys, like I had this sense of calm. I was just sitting there next to my buddy, like eating my food, and it didn't make me happy that they had said this. I looked at it and I was like, ugh. There was that.
Yeah.
There was like a man. Like I had that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But this calm, right? It's when the tornadoes hit town.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was just so destroyed. To just like be a person who said on Facebook and Twitter, like, hey, I have a truck. If you are strong and you have a chainsaw, then get in my truck and we will go and we will cook, because all the utility companies couldn't get to
That's right.
everybody, and so we had
Chris Cretton and I
to start
he
cutting
came and
down
picked me
these
up.
trees,
That's what we
right?
did. That's right.
And so like all these people step into that moment, right? They step in this moment and they see a need and they step in, to the point where FEMA uses Cleveland as a best practices case study.
Wow.
Right? They're like, we don't know. How'd you build this town? Like, do you guys realize we should still be rebuilding our town right now? These years later, other
did not
cities
realize
would.
that.
Yeah, well, that's true. Like we are a FEMA best practice case study for how to handle things after a tornado.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. And so in these moments, right, we see a need and we like step into them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody is given those opportunities all the time. And like my wife would say, it's like that power of giving permission is that, like, not only am I very likely to step in when something is said to me, but if I see somebody who's thinking about stepping in, then I say, you will, and you will be successful, and you're going to make it, right? And then they do, and they are. Like, it's not like there's not like this trail of the dead, right? People who stepped into meeting a need and then it just all went so terrible and like everything was rubble. No, like I was right to tell them that they would, and I was right to encourage them to do it. And I think she's integral to that path.
Yeah,
sure.
Just her saying that, just her verbalizing, Rob, your superpower is that you give people permission. I remember it when I'm giving people permission. It was like she gave me permission to give people permission.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Like she said it. It was a catalyst,
Yeah.
And so I take that really seriously.
Yeah.
For sure.
Rob, I hear what you're saying, and I do want to be one of those guys that did have that interaction on the internet with you last week, and I totally got where you was coming from once I gave it any thought at all. And I want to thank you for everything you do. And I even mentioned it to you in my comment to you. Better you than me. Thank you. I do appreciate all you do. I said that in my comment, and I if your wife hears this, I'd like to thank her for giving you permission to give permission.
Sure. Yeah. She deserves it, man.
Yeah. So we're on a podcast here, and I got to tell you, when I first started listening to podcasts, you were amongst the first voices I heard. How does that make you feel?
Really?
Project SSA.
Yeah, sure.
I loved it so much.
Is this your
Rob.
gotcha moment?
No.
This is the thing I didn't know we were going to talk about.
I loved it so much. I went back and re-listened this past week as I knew I was going to come here.
Yeah.
And it's still good. I love it. I've at least 5 or 6 of those listens are friends of mine who I called and said, hey, check these guys out.
Sure. Yeah. That's something else, right?
And now it reminded me that you had a podcast where you reviewed movies and ate tacos.
Did,
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had several. I had What's Happening Cleveland. Not What's Happening Cleveland. Lights, Camera, Cleveland. That was my very first podcast ever.
Is it still out there?
You could probably find it somewhere. Right when I was working at Life Care, Ryan Fairselli and I would once a week, when everyone went home for the day, he would come down to my office and we would open up my computer and we would do a movie podcast. And that was in the early days. There was only Apple Podcasts. There was nowhere else to even listen to them.
Can you get that close?
Ooh, man, I don't know.
That sounds like, I don't know, 2012,
2013. Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
And what was really interesting was, we had just thousands upon thousands of subscribers because there wasn't a movie podcast that was out at the time. And it's funny now that we work here, we think about the branding and everything. It's like if we had known, we would have called it like the Big Dumb Movie We wouldn't have called it Lights Camera Cleveland and been like, we're in this tiny town and we go see movies. Like we used to fight with, we had this podcast and we were getting like thousands of listens.
Yeah.
And we couldn't even get like the local movie theater to give us free tickets to come in. We were like, we'll buy our own popcorn. They wouldn't. They're like, no. But so that was the first one. And then I kind of reimagined it again. I don't remember if it had a new title or what, but at some point, Britton and I resurrected it as a micro podcast about movies and tacos. And it was like, that was at that point, podcasts were a thing, and obviously like some very long, some super, and we wanted to do something like really short. So we like kept it to like 15 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of fun. And we did that for a while. And then just like life came along and I stopped being able to get to the movie theater as much. We used to go every Tuesday.
Of course you did.
And we would go watch movies every single Tuesday
free
night.
Popcorn?
Yeah, we would go to the latest showing.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of us would get our wives and kids settled and then go out. And then we would review them with one another, the films in the parking lot, like till like 2 a.m. and then go home and then do the podcast the next day. So I did that one. And obviously Project SSA is not like any of that. That's a very unique premise for a podcast, I think.
Yeah.
I'll only tell you this. First of all, if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to Project SSA and you like into ghosts and treasure hunts and stuff like that, then go listen to it.
Or just fantastic storytelling.
But I will tell you, it's 100% true. So that's, I feel like if people listen to Project SSA, then they would know a lot more about me as like the internal piece of me.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me because I've listened
because
to
you've
it. It's one of the first things, other than Santa Claus and a Lee video. I think that's the first time.
I've been on so many Lee videos. You guys should go listen if you want to really dig around and find an old one. I did the Lee video yearbook the year that Lee was changing from a college to a university. And I'm dressed like Quentin Tarantino, like with a big butterfly collar, and I have like mutton chop sideburns.
Yeah.
And I'm going around like talking about the essence of Lee College, and so I'm like, I'm doing all these like iconic Lee things, and then at the end I'm looking at the camera and I'm going, Lee College. But
that's pretty awesome. What 1997.
Yeah, it's way back.
We'll go find
So what did you think of Project? Why don't you talk for a minute? I've been talking a while.
Well,
Why don't you
Project
tell me about
SSA?
Project SSA? How'd you find it? And then what'd you think of it?
It did. I don't know if I can answer the question how I found it, but
Okay.
You've mentioned Adam Lowe. He is a dear friend of mine. I've known him for years. Coached Blaine in football as a kid, and all the way up through high school. But did you mention it on Man Up America at some point?
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah.
Maybe. I do have a group of guys in town that we share around like certain true crime type podcasts, and it might have ended up in that.
It falls into that a little.
If you like true crime, this is not a true crime podcast, but if you enjoy true crime, the way that stories are taken and put together and told back, you definitely would.
It's true. It's just not true crime.
That's right. It's true.
Yeah.
It's just there. Yeah, it's not true crime. If you're from this area, especially anywhere in the Chattanooga area, especially Cleveland, you would enjoy this.
What's
story.
your favorite moment? Tell me what your favorite moment in Project SSA is.
Oh,
Now I get to interview.
Well, I don't want to spoil it. I feel like it's. Is it like spoiling?
It's so old. That podcast is so
Okay.
old. Like,
Yeah. All right.
I think there's very
That's so
little you
funny
can
say that though, because I mean, what is it? Maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like you can't spoil it unless you tell the end.
yeah. Okay.
Don't tell the ending.
So
then-
I love. Let's see. First of all, Dan Buck. He's a guy that I haven't. I know he's close with you. I have.
Yeah.
I sat at a card table with him one time. Enjoyed every second of it. He has such a quick wit, so I enjoy that about it. That you guys have
Mhm.
that. But there's a moment early on where he's like running from spiders, and there's no spiders there. And then of
That's
course,
great.
you know,
That's a great moment. I've got video of that.
yeah.
I'll show you some video of that at some point.
The favorite moment by far would be the one that I really don't want to say, because not because this is it's years later and I don't want to spoil it, but I have friends who are going to listen to this conversation.
Sure, yeah, okay, that's fine. You
and
tell
I
me
want-
afterwards.
I want them to be able to
Yeah.
experience it in the same way that I did. You know,
It is.
I do love when you rolled up on the Alderman on the side of a building in,
Yeah,
in
that's
Chattanooga.
good. Yeah, that's good too.
I want to know, gosh, there's questions I want to ask that's going to spoil
Sure.
it. Can I ask questions that are going to spoil it?
of course you can.
Yeah, I mean,
I just love it that you're loving so much reminiscent on this, because I mean, this was a creation. This was like,
Let's talk about the
Mm.
podcast itself.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Who, first of all, I'm assuming Dan Buck, who wrote the entire, is that right? Did he engineer this entire process?
He did. Yeah.
Even the podcast itself?
So he and I worked on the podcast together.
Okay.
I was already making podcasts. I think he was too. He had a podcast called The Punnery, which
Yeah.
was like about dad jokes and puns. So
Yeah.
he was making podcasts at that point.
Who sound engineered that podcast? That's just a nerd question. I like. 'Cause-
We recorded it in a podcast studio.
Okay, I started to say
downtown
because
that
of
doesn't exist anymore.
of
That
all the
was-
things I've heard you on, that one's crispy, man. It's nice.
Yeah, we had a great room. We had a vocal booth like that we recorded that in, and we recruited Jeremy Moore, who is one of the owners of Bond Life Coffee here in town,
Mhm.
to be the narrator of sorts,
Yeah.
for the podcast. Yeah.
Now, he was one of the folks that was in the know. Is that correct?
At some point, I think he was. Yeah.
Okay. Did he get to experience any of it?
Very
as-
few people were in the know.
Yeah.
He was there in the end, like at the during the kind of the reveal of
Okay.
things, but
So
were
he
some
got to
people-
experience
My
some of
wife
it.
was in the know, and Dan's wife was in the know.
Yeah.
Very few people were in the know.
Okay. Yeah.
I was not. in
No,
the
you were
know,
not.
You
were not in
That's
this
what I was
one.
saying. I wish people could if I could gift that experience, not my unique one, like that podcast really documents a unique moment in my life, but the freedom, we were talking about giving people permission earlier,
Mhm.
and I don't know if I said it, but it's like that permission extends to myself.
and it needs to, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
for sure.
And so that podcast is a great example of a man who has given himself permission to experience something that, there were moments. I'll say this will get more people to want to listen to it without giving anything away.
Okay.
There were moments, not during the podcast, because everybody needs to remember, the events happen before the podcast
That's right.
is filmed. Okay. So the things I'm going through that summer I'm not in any way thinking we'll make a podcast of it. Right.
Yeah.
But the reckless abandon with which I pursue the task in front of me that for that time period had me honestly thinking, I can't. So Dan's one of my best friends, and then we have another friend, Dusty Strickland, who's one of my best friends, and Dusty and I going to church together at the time, and I'm thinking well, I can't tell Dusty about this, because if I do, he'll say like, you can't do that. Like you're not allowed, like from a religious standpoint, like you can't do that.
Yeah.
But he's in the know, right? So Dusty was one of the people who's in the know.
Yeah.
And then the other one is I'm thinking like, I can't tell my wife everything I'm going through because she'll be afraid and she won't let me. But my wife's in the know, right? And so like the two people that I'm like really struggling, morally struggling, like I want to tell my wife everything. And so I'm like telling her, but I'm like, well, like I went and did some things this morning before work.
Yeah.
Like, took a long lunch, it's like just kind of, running around with Dan, like, and with Dusty would kind of press on me sometimes, like, so what's going on? And I would just be like, nothing really, pretty boring, and they both know, like, they know that I'm like searching around in graveyards and stuff, like, so, just wild. Like if I could gift that is like my version. Let's say you're a little kid. And as a little kid, you always wanted to play baseball.
Yeah.
And you play some baseball, you get married, you have kids, you get a job, you're a responsible bloke in the world. And then one day, somebody's like, hey, you get a phone call on your phone and they're like, listen, it's the San Diego Padres. We need you to come out here to San Diego. We got an opening at first base, right? like it's like that. It was like, I can't put into words the meatiness of it, the realness of that moment, and to get to live it. Yeah. I am infinitely grateful. Like I'm grateful to Dan for making it happen. Like it's a true friend.
Can I just say, I think we all want someone to love us that much than to give that gift.
Right.
What a gift.
And our wives, like, and I love my wife for letting that happen. Yeah. Like it was on her part to be like, okay, it's gonna happen. Yeah. It's an extraordinary moment in my life that I'm so grateful. Yeah. And like, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't listened to that, you don't have any idea what we're talking about, but
I'll
you need to say like, you should check it out. You'll get jealous.
Yeah.
It was good.
That's something else.
Good thing.
That's something else. But yeah, that's a question I wanted to ask you. And I wanted to ask you, like, as that progressed over time, not Project SSA alone, but the couple of ones that we've talked about, how's podcasting sort of maybe changed in your mind or evolved in the maybe in your priorities? But now we've already mentioned that you run a pretty big unofficial church online in Cleveland,
and we are going to launch a podcast. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely going to have a What's Happening Cleveland podcast. Yeah. Whether that'll just be news or whether it'll be interviewing, I kind of felt like. So I have a rule. How about this? You're asking how it's changed. I'll tell you. I can actually answer it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this won't be boring. But I approach podcasts this way now. When someone comes to my company and they say they want to make a podcast because it's one of the things that we deliver. So we create podcasts.
Sure. The
first thing I say to them is, okay, but if you want to do a podcast, then you need to tell me why, like what, let's say somebody says, well, I'm going to interview people. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. But Joe Rogan already interviews people and he knows people who are way more interesting than you do. Sure. And he's got more listeners. And so either you have to just really want to do it, like in your belly, it's got to be good enough for you. Sure. Like going back to Project SSA, you want to know what? It's good enough for me. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't you like people who like their own jokes? You should. Yes. Like, it's like, why tell the joke if it's not funny to you? Right? Like, it's like right? Like, I don't release a song. That was a big part of my life, was playing music for a living that a lot of people don't ever get to do. But nobody heard my bad songs because I already got rid of them. Like, I edited myself. If you heard it, I already thought it was good. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I'll tell people this. I'll say, first of all, tell me what the podcast is about. And they'll tell me. Then I say, okay, this is the other podcasts that exist. They're already out there. Mm-hmm. And the reason I ask that question isn't because I want to make somebody sad. It's because I want to find out like where their passion lies. Like if you want to interview famous people, you're not gonna, probably. I'm not saying you guys couldn't. I'm not trying to crush anyone's dreams. I'm saying the market is taken by people who are already doing it. You have to have a certain amount of resources, and where like Conan O'Brien is now interviewing all his best friends, and then Joe Rogan is interviewing his friends. And it's like, right. So I'm not saying you can't, but I'm saying like, that's a bad primary driver. The best driver is like, I have a burning knowledge to know. Ooh, well, we can work with that. So like in the early days, like how things have changed is like back in the day, dude, we could have just been like, this podcast we're doing right now might have been the #1 podcast. Like that's how much podcasts have changed. I'm serious. Like we could have done this, and people, do you know, as long as we've been recording here right now, I don't even know how long, an hour at least. Nothing existed like that back when I did Lights, Camera, Cleveland. Joe Rogan didn't have a podcast.
That's right.
Kevin Smith didn't have a podcast. The first time someone listened to Joe Rogan, they were like, an hour? He's going to talk to like, he's going to, you know, right. And so like, sometimes I'll listen to a Joe Rogan podcast and I'm amazed. And here's why. I want to say this about Joe Rogan, whether people like him or they don't like him, because I don't mind. Anybody can have their feelings about Joe Rogan.
Sure.
That guy's all in. He loves it. His 100%. Driver wasn't to get famous. He already was like an announcer and had been like a comedian. He'd been all these things. He wasn't like, we're going to have the biggest podcast in the world. When he sits down and he talks to some joker you've never even heard of, he's like, today on the show, I have blah, 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 blah. He like wrote a book about like school. He's written the definitive book on the changing of the American school books and the text, and you're like, oh, this is going to stink. And then 4 hours later, you're like, this is the most fascinating thing I've ever heard in my life. It's because he's a true believer. He reminds me, you know, the kids listening to this podcast won't know this, but there used to be a guy called Art Bell who was on Coast to Coast. He was on AM, and he had a show called Coast to Coast. And that was like the show you would listen to if you wanted to know about like Bigfoot sightings and like aliens and all of this. I devoured that show as a kid, not because I thought those things were true, but because I love the fact that Art Bell wanted to believe even if he didn't. Yeah. He wouldn't go so far as to say, I believe this happened. But you could tell there was like this thirst. And Joe Rogan has that, right? So he's got in his belly, he wants to sit with you and ask these questions, right? So I asked that first. And the second thing I do in a way that has changed is I no longer record podcasts the way that we're doing them here. So I don't mean I'll be on them. But when I'm producing a podcast, I tell the person, okay, if you're really this fired up about it, then you ought to be able to give me 8 to 10 ideas for your podcast that you already have. Like if you're passionate about this, they've already been banging around. 8 to 10 people you guys want to interview, or 8 to 10 this. And then I say, okay, great. Well, now you have a first season. And then I try to pack as much recording into that as I can, right? And I'll say, okay, we're going to schedule out all the guests and we're going to record as many of these guests as we can over the course of a month or two, and then drip them out weekly or monthly or however the podcast goes, because then you've got this one season. You can drop the season, right? Because people consume podcasts differently too.
Sure.
So a lot of people want to consume a season of a podcast, right? So at least for the first season, I'm like, give me like 8 to 10 episodes. And we got the first season. Now we take a break in our brain and we think, okay, first season was a little bit about this. So second season, what worked in the first season? What do we think didn't work? Great. We're going to adjust those things and change them. And now we're going to plan out a season 2. Right?
That makes me think of Seinfeld's riding in cars with comedians. And each of his, did you listen to these?
Comedians in cars,
comedians in
getting
cars.
coffee.
What did I just say? I just made something else.
It's close enough that I knew what you were talking about.
But like each of his seasons are like 8 to 10.
That's right.
He did 6 of them,
and then he learns from it.
These little themes, and he sent them out. Yeah.
That's right.
We really do love what we're doing, and I think this is
that. I mean, that's obvious.
And I've said 1,000 times.
Sitting with you guys, it's obvious that your primary driver is you actually like to sit and know people and like talk to them, and so like,
and we enjoy each other's company. I mean,
well, that's probably probably crucial for you.
Yeah, and this I've said this a million times. This is literal journals for me. You know, I don't. I've said before, even on the podcast, so I'll repeat myself. But like, I can't go find the writings or recordings or anything of
Yeah, for
anybody
sure.
past like my dad. And
Yeah.
so, I want to find a way to, maybe I find a way to preserve these kind of conversations for 50
Yeah.
years or 100
I love
years.
it when you think about it, man. Like even just this one podcast that we've been recording right now, like has captured like a lot of local history. It's like we've talked about like the tensions between Cleveland and the university students. We talked about the monument. We've talked about, the Cleveland Middle School. We talked it's like we've talked about all these kind of highlights. It's like the tornadoes. It's really that's fascinating. So like that's one way that like I've changed the way I approach podcasts. And I think the reason I do that is I still see podcasts as a very great focused media. Like I can make sure that I like a podcast and then I know I'm always gonna like it. Right. It's like I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is something that I really enjoy. And then I'm gonna get a bunch of episodes.
So you're a podcast listener.
Oh yeah.
What are you listening to?
I listen to a podcast right now called The Dive Down, which is some guys from the Chicagoland area who were competitive modern Magic players, and they are my age, and so like all of their pop culture references and they've actually just recently quit. They actually, I joined their Patreon because I liked it so much, and used to play a lot of competitive Magic, and they almost immediately, like I joined the Patreon and they were like, guys, we can't do it anymore. We've been talking about Magic for years and years. And so now they're just talking about like whatever they want. I still like it a lot. Like I haven't left as a patron. But they're like, we're like a podcast about some dudes and then who play a little Magic now, so I listen to that. I listen to a podcast called Bible in a Year, which is just every morning listening to scripture that'll get you through the Bible in 365 days. I listen to whenever a new episode or a new season of Serial drops. I listen to Serial. I listen to, well, let me open it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly what I listen to.
Do any comedy? You follow any comedians?
I listen to the Chicago Cubs podcast. I listen to Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, although I haven't listened to it, but it is downloaded here. Oh, this is one I love. This is one that I love. I listened to one called The Rewatchables. Have you ever heard that? So it's part of the Ringer network, which there's a lot of podcasts on the Ringer. And this one, it features the guy who started the Ringer, the guy who was like in sports journalism and stuff. And they do this amazing podcast where they rewatch old movies that they like to see, and then they review them, talking about like why this movie is worth watching over and over and over again. And they give it like all sorts of like funny superlative awards and like just stuff like that. And a few weeks ago they did RoboCop, and I listened to that podcast and I was like, RoboCop, and it gave me an idea. You want me to tell you the idea? Okay.
Of course I do.
It's the idea for my next podcast.
No,
don't set it up and then not tell me.
Yeah. So here's my next podcast. Are you ready?
Sure.
So
I don't know. This feels like a setup. You may not be serious. You
no,
serious?
I'm dead serious.
Okay.
I'm dead serious. So I do a lot of movies. I love movies. I could also I could do a podcast about Magic the Gathering, which I've considered. I could do a podcast about comic books. Like I'm very nerdy. What I should do is a podcast about marketing and marketing agencies, and then everybody would listen, right? Like that's where I'm successful in the world. I'm a failed competitive Magic player. I am a failed film producer. I'm a failed, right? Like, but who cares? It's like the things I like. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the podcast that I want to do.
Inspired by RoboCop.
Okay. It's inspired by RoboCop. So here's the thing about RoboCop that you have to understand and why it's important. RoboCop, if you've never watched it, has no right to be as good as it is. But it's actually phenomenal. There's like so many pieces of RoboCop that have like odd amounts of like heart and social commentary. So like hear me out on this. Like RoboCop is the story of AI coming for everyone's jobs.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Okay.
RoboCop is like, hey, listen, like our cops are getting outgunned out there. We better bring in robot cops. And the cops are like, wait a minute, we can't lose our, what are you talking about? We don't want to lose our jobs. And the cops are on strike and everything's so terrible, right? And there's all this incredible stuff. I could go down the rabbit trail in RoboCop. Yeah. And then when I got done, so I listened to that podcast, then I watched RoboCop and I remembered, why I loved this as a kid, right? Yeah. And a lot of people don't know this, but like Peter Weller, who played RoboCop, was like an award-winning Shakespearean actor who got into, this is true, this is a true story right now. Peter Weller, when he was on set, would only allow himself to be called Robo or Murphy, which was his cop name. And so somebody said, hey, Peter, I want to talk to you about the script. He wouldn't even respond. He wouldn't even respond.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
He would not even respond to them. So you have this like Shakespearean actor who's bringing this like beautiful human, like there's this. It's fascinating to think that this is a film from the 80s that's discussing what happens when technology and humanity begin to blend.
Yeah.
It also features, by the way, the very first DVDs don't exist, by the way. They don't even exist in the world of RoboCop, right? Like at that time period, the DVD has not been invented. Mm-hmm. But the director at some point takes a CD, which had recently been invented, and he puts it into a TV and a video message plays, right? Wow. And they're like, just, it's like.
We'll be watching RoboCop sometime soon.
I'm going to have to watch it because I got to make a confession. I was so small that just the guy passing away in the first broke my little child heart. I was so young. So I don't remember a whole lot about the movie.
RoboCop 2 came out. I'm like, this is my child. I remember a little bit older. So.
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm born in 84.
There is it is unbelievably bloody. The moment, so a lot of people have said this. Oh gosh, this is a hard R. This is a hard R film.
Who knows in the 80s though?
The moment when they kill Murphy,
how am I seeing it?
I remember as a kid. This is why it's brilliant, or not brilliant. RoboCop found a way to sneak its way into the American conscious, so that kids who had no business seeing it ended up seeing it. It was always like somewhere on a VHS tape, and somebody's like, it was like this whole thing. Oh. But you're right. Listen. There's definitely like an age threshold at which nobody should have seen Murphy get killed. And there's this moment, right, where the guy who like went on to play, I forget his name as an actor, but he's like in Malcolm in the Middle. He's Malcolm's dad, right? That guy. And he's like got this gun and he's pointing it at Murphy and he's going, and Murphy's on the ground. Oh, and he's like, nah, 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 nah. And then he just blows Murphy's hand off and like you see it. His whole hand just like explodes. And like as a kid, I was like, I couldn't even sleep, right? Like I'm having nightmares at this,
sounds right?
And so like this whole idea of like violence against the police and people, right? Like there's just so much that's in there. So anyway, I say all that to say, after that, I went on a deep dive of like I found these awesome documentaries about RoboCop where they're like interviewing all the cast and all this. So I came up with this idea for a podcast. It's a movie podcast. And it's called Wouldn't Accept the Grade, right? So it's the idea that like RoboCop was told it's going to be a B movie. And I said, no, I'm going to be an A.
I'm going to be an A.
Right? And so I'm going to review all those horrible films that are actually like so much better than they had any right to be.
You got another one right on the tip of your tongue
down there.
I feel like he's got 8 or 10 because if he's going to quiz,
I do.
Don't spoil the first season for us.
I do. Hold on, let me find this.
While you're finding that though,
I gotta go watch RoboCop.
Man, I probably told you this already, but I have Seth watching 80s movies with me, and like the last one was Nightmare on Elm Street because I needed to see if Freddy was as scary as Freddy was when I was a kid, and Freddy was not nearly as scary as Freddy was when I had nightmares after watching Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, so I saw Freddy Krueger because I had a cousin who was older than me.
Always, that's how it is.
And he had no business showing me that movie.
But he did.
And it was too much.
Because we were unsupervised.
It was because we were unsupervised because we were feral children. Okay, are you guys ready?
I'm going to prove to you on a Sunday.
I'm going to prove to you guys that I stick to my own formula.
Okay.
This is Wouldn't Accept the Grade. That's
You
the
got your
name of
notes
that's
on
the
your
name of
phone?
my post. Yeah.
All right.
RoboCop, cyborg cop pulp turned satirical masterpiece. Escape from New York. Snake gives
That's
us.
Kurt Russell, isn't it?
That's Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
He gives us the definitive dystopian anti-hero. The Thing. It's a creature. It was
Yes.
supposed to just be a creature feature, but it becomes like a film
Oh,
that's
when his
actually
arm gets
about
cut off and then it grows
existential
back?
horror. That's
Oh,
right. It's just
word.
it shouldn't do any of this, but it
Those are
actually
magic.
is about like existential horror and paranoia.
Huh.
All right. Listen to this. This one's wild. Are you ready? If this is a great example of one that's telling the future. They Live. Have you ever seen They Live?
No, I don't even know this one.
It's a wrestling alien political allegory.
Oh, no.
So I'll just leave that there here in the year of our Lord 2025. All right, now this is one I love. I love this film. Copland. Have you seen Copland?
I have not.
You
That
seen
sounds
Copland?
familiar. You're gonna have to tell me a little bit.
So Copland stars Sylvester Stallone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about a guy that has an ear injury, so he can only be on the sheriff's department in New Jersey, but everyone who lives in his neighborhood are cops across the river in New York. And it has the worst name of all time, Copland, because in the movie they're like, that's what they call his little neighborhood because that's where all the police come back from New York. But it's like this, it has like Harvey Keitel and Sylvester Stallone and like all these incredible, and there is not, I know you're a police officer, you're a sheriff, right?
I was.
Are you were.
I were.
There's a moment, you know that moment so to take a movie that movie should be horrible, but it's incredible. Okay, so it's gonna make the grade on my podcast.
Yeah.
Do you know in the Saving Private Ryan, right? You've seen that, right?
I have.
You've seen Saving Private
Yeah, of
Ryan?
course.
Yeah, of course. You have for sure.
Of course.
Incredible movie, but like the moment when the German kills the Jewish American soldier slowly, and he's going shh 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 shh. After that guy spared his life, right? So
That's
like
right.
that soldier spares the German's life, and then the German kills him with this knife. There's a moment in Copland where there's like a New York cop who's like chasing down these gang members, and he finds himself like up on this scaffolding, and he's been calling for backup, and he's calling for backup, and he's calling for backup, and he's alone. And there's like this long 2 or 3 minute sequence where like the gang is like beating him, right? Because he's gotten himself into this situation with no backup. And the only time I've ever felt like that was during Saving Private Ryan. Like when I watched that, I was like, here's a guy who's helpless, right? And then like it's gonna happen. So that's one of that's one. And then here's one that you know is great. Tremors.
Yes.
It should be horrible,
It should
but
be.
it's incredible.
That's the.
I'd have to watch that one again.
That's
to
the thing.
believe you because
They're like underground?
right now. Mm-mm.
Here's another one.
The things underground.
Yes.
Is that Tremors?
Yeah,
I hate that.
No, you gotta watch it. It's so good. That
Maybe
movie's
I need
awesome.
to rewatch it.
Listen, I'm gonna do Unforgiven,
Yeah.
the washed up cowboy movie that redefined the Western.
I thought that was okay when I first watched it.
That's what I'm saying. But when it came out, it was just supposed to be another Western. It was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
this is
here's a
Clint
Western.
Eastwood.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Yeah, and it defined Clint Eastwood as a director. So anyway,
Yeah.
there's your sneak preview.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
there you go. So that's gonna be my next podcast.
That's
I'll probably record it at this very table.
I can't wait. I
If
can't
my
wait for
podcast
it.
studio doesn't get finished.
Yeah.
I'm
what
just kidding. It
what
should
else
be
are you
done.
recording at this table?
So at this table, we record the the podcast for the city mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So we do 5 points with the mayor here.
He does that once a month. Is that right?
We record, yeah.
Yeah.
We get him in here as much as we can.
Sure.
You know. We record actually the Space Camp podcast here. So that's really, I would say, if you have any interest in space at all, it really is like the definitive history of the United States space program. You know, we record that for the U.S. Space and Rocket Center.
How did you get that gig?
Oh, well, so how I got that gig is that years and years ago, many years ago, I was the Facebook guy. I was playing with Facebook. I was learning to utilize it for business. Most people were just like college kids that were like goofing with it. It was kind of right after Facebook pages came out. And so one day I get a phone call from the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, and they say, "Hey, is this Rob Alderman?" Yeah, we heard that you are good at creating Facebook pages, that you know how. So, yeah, I do, I guess. And so they paid me to come down and set up like all the U.S. Space and Rocket Center and Space Camp Facebook pages so they could start having a page. And I did that. Years later, COVID hits, and a lot of people don't realize this, but like um, U.S. Space Rocket Center and Space Camp are odd in that they are a profit, a nonprofit, and a government entity, all three. And so the problem is that they could receive no funding, no government funding for them. They were excluded from every bit of government funding. And so we got a call. At some point, we'd done some work for someone who ended up on their board of directors, and they were in a meeting, and they said, "Well, whatever happened to that guy who like helped us set up these Facebook pages?" And they said, "Well, he runs a marketing agency. He's grown up, and and so they called me and they asked me to help them. And my business partner, Brenton Meathy, who at the time was not, I don't even think he was a business partner yet. We're at this meeting, and he's just texting me over and over during the meeting. "You have got to let me help Space Camp. You have to let me help. You have to let me help. Please, like, just get them to accept the proposal. Like we'll do it." Mm-hmm. And so I said to them, and I feel like this is okay to say now, there was a time I would have not said this out loud, but like a lot of organizations, there was understood fear of saying, we've had to close our doors and we also don't have money. Like we can't get a government bailout, but also kids can't come here. Right. Mm-hmm. So they were on track to really be closed within a month or two. They were not going to make it, especially because like half of the people who go to Space Camp are from out of the country. So no planes flying into the country. No one can go to Space Camp. And so they were stuck because they didn't also want to say out loud that they weren't doing well. And that's with a lot of organizations. Sure. They need help, but they don't want to say, they're worried that if they say they need help, that'll be worse. And so in that meeting, I just said, well, we're willing to help you. I feel like we could help you, but only if you will allow us to use this hashtag Save Space Camp. And the premise of that campaign in my mind was, you're an American and COVID is running rampant and you can't do anything. Like we all remember like the powerlessness. You can't leave your house. You're worried to go get groceries. You know, like maybe your work's been shut down. Like you can't do anything. And I just thought like, but by God, we can save Space Camp, right? Like we're at home.
There you are.
Like what we will. Yeah.
We will. There you are.
Yeah, there you go, dude.
Yep,
that's
absolutely.
the point. And so I took that and there you go. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly it. That's like, right. By God, we will save Space Camp. And so I told them we would be willing to take them on as a client if they were willing to use the hashtag Save Space Camp and actually let me tell the American public, we're in trouble. Like, just like you are. You're at home and you don't know what to do. Guess what? Us too. But like, if we close down, no one goes to the moon anymore, right? It's like 2/3 of astronauts get their their first bit of this at Space Camp.
Yeah.
And so I don't take credit for anything more than what I've just, like, our team did an incredible job. Britton led that team, not me.
What's my favorite part of what you say? You keep saying we will. You're not saying I will. That's right, because I am this ambitious and I am this gritty and I can grind. But no, you're like, we will because we can make it.
Because we will. And so we ran that campaign and we raised like $7-point-something million in like 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And Space Camp was saved and all that. And so like out of that came an incredible relationship with them.
Yeah, cool.
And their podcast originally was a perk for donors. So it's like this sort of like, if you donate, then you get access to this podcast, but now it's available everywhere. And it's called Dare to Explore. So that's my plug for that podcast. So we do that here. And Ryan is an excellent host and editor, and Britton sometimes hosts that as well. We do a ministerial care podcast for the Church of God Division of Care, which is really for, I think, beautiful, is that we're starting to understand that like pastors aren't perfect supermen, right? Like we've known that. The funny thing is people have known that for a long time. Pastors don't feel it. Pastors are afraid that they have to be that way. And so we produce a podcast about ministers' mental health.
Love it.
That I'm really, really proud of. And then
well, that runs in a theme for us a bunch of like who preaches to preachers, who teaches the teachers, who counselors the counselors.
That's right.
You know, that's a really big deal, and I love it that y'all do.
So
that.
we do that, and then we do a few more. One that I'm really proud of though would be we did the 5 Points podcast for really it was for an organization called Be the Bridge, which was like getting some funding from the United Way and from City Fields at the time, which tells the story of the 5 Points neighborhood here in Cleveland, which is historically the minority sort of overlooked part of town. And so for really over a year, and I host that one, or hosted that one, met with Black community leaders to learn about like how they grew up, what Cleveland was like at that time. You know, we talk a lot about, you know, like when the school was burned to the ground, you know, which it was burned to the ground multiple times.
College Hill. Yeah.
And so yeah, it's called the College Hill Podcast.
Yeah, I've heard at least an episode of that.
I have too.
And I didn't think of that until you just said that.
So that was
you reminded me of that. Yeah.
That was an intense podcast for me personally. Like I specifically didn't want to know anything about anyone I was going to interview. Because again, circle back to like reasonable mindedness.
Sure.
There's so many cultural things that like we don't understand.
Is that an attempt to say downright mindful?
In the depth. Yeah, it's
to
speak about speak about downright mindfulness. I want to say it like this. I approach that because a lot of people don't understand. I'm going to speak in some definitives. And so like, I understand, I want to say to those people listening right now, I understand that like there are outliers to everything. People are unique beings, but also like we share certain traits. And I think therein is where we run into these issues about whether or not we believe in things like systemic racism, right? Which this podcast has a lot to do with being Black in a town that has a 4% minority population when other towns of this size average like 16%.
Yeah.
And so like, what is that attrition? What are those people? And like, where do those systems come from? And so like, I wanted to approach it that way because of this. I had a lot of conversations with like my white buddies, my middle-aged white pals, who it's amazing, like culturally, how we are so ingrained from the time that we're little boys to fix a problem, to fix it. We're fixers, even if like we don't think that we are. It's like ingrained in us. And again, there are outliers. And so like sometimes we run into a barrier where we're thinking like, well, systemic racism can't exist because like they live in the same world I live in. So why aren't they experiencing the same life that I'm experiencing? But it's actually not really that we believe that. is that somewhere deep, deep down, we know like something that's systemic is something like I myself cannot fix. And I don't even know how. And so it's like, I know that like a lot of white guys, oh, this is crazy. Maybe it's not crazy, but they would look right at their black brother or their black sister, meaning community wise, and be like, tell me what I can do to fix this. Right?
Yeah.
What can I do to fix this? Like, that's where we run. Like, we run to that. And when we can't fix it, we are at a complete loss. And so I wanted to meet these people without knowing any preparation in the hopes that a guy listening to this podcast would be learning as I learned,
Mm-hmm.
learning exactly what I learned and having the feelings I felt. And I'll tell you, they were complicated.
Yeah.
And like they come out a lot in that podcast, but I could do like a whole other podcast just about the way it made me feel like when you speak to people who lived on that part of Inman Street and they talk about like the parties and the happiness and the joy that was mixing the schools together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I say that to a couple of them. I say, like, you're describing like Disneyland. They're like we were playing jazz in the streets and the white people would come over to our part of town and get soul food like when they were hungry. And we had a hotel over here and like, you know, they had all these things. Right. And then there's this expansion of Inman Street. Right. Actually, it's just now being expanded, but there's a promise of expansion.
Yeah.
And so
Main Street.
And so all of the
what's the movement downtown? What's Main Street, Cleveland?
Main Street, Cleveland is downtown. Yeah, but
connecting
really
5 points.
That's right, connecting 5 points.
Yeah.
So that's the big piece of this. So a lot of people don't even realize that like this new bit is actually a promise that the city made many, many, many years ago. So what happens is all of those black businesses, right? They're all bought out.
Yeah.
All those businesses are bought out to become the expansion of Inman, but instead we build a Target, and all the business and everything moves to the other side of town, and this piece of town withers. And so, like having these sort of like very intense feelings, right? And I didn't know how the city would feel about this, or how the black community is going to feel about this. And I really think that comes out. But I do want to say, like, as a kudos to our city. And a lot of people you can nitpick anything that you want, but like that's now required listening for people who are hired at the city. So like if you think like the city got their feelings hurt and doesn't want to hear about the Inman Street expansion or any of these things, like it's actually the opposite. You know, like it's required listening.
You need to be reminded what that's called.
It's called the College Hill Podcast.
Because I don't know if you had sent something or someone else had sent something, but yeah,
you interviewed, what was the lady's name? She was a principal.
Alma Dotson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
I heard Avery Johnson.
Avery Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Avery Johnson.
Huh.
But, you know, and that whole thing happened. Like that whole thing happened because I posted on my Facebook, I wish I had more black friends. I just posted, I was like, I wish I had more black friends. And like immediately a black guy here in town responded, brother, me too. You know, and you start to learn like, wait a minute, 4% black population, where are they going?
Well, and can I say that it's, you know, according to the Census Bureau, it's a smaller percent today than it was just after the Civil War.
Yeah, sure. I believe it.
And it's fact.
Yeah, I believe it. And so, like, I could go on and on. That would be a different podcast.
That's
I could talk to you guys about that stuff forever.
Yeah.
But just the implication is this. I want to say this, and then we'll move on to whatever you guys want. But like, if you are a young black person and you look around and you don't see a place for you, then you leave. You got to go somewhere.
That's right.
And so, again, getting to those cultures that we talked about, the inherent culture, right, is like, You guys know, everybody knows, this is reasonable. Again, this is downright mindful. That within our white culture, right, there's this culture of like identifying talent young and reaching out. So if either of you guys had a kid and I knew, well, you did it. You already did it. How's your son? How is the chess playing boy? And you actually said the words, well, he's still mine for now. I still got him. We still have a chance. That's like an inherently white culture thing to do. So there are kids in this town right now, young men and young women who have already been told, you're very bright. As soon as you graduate college, they're not even in college yet. As soon as you graduate college, come see me.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And what I'm trying to say to you is imagine that that's not happening on that scale to Black students. So they're not having someone just pick them out and say, guess what? There's a place for you here. Well, there has to be a place for them somewhere. So they leave. So we stay at 4%. Right. And so it's like, it would be wonderful if we could foster that and just make people aware of like, this is actually like, it's not systemic racism when we talk about it in the way it pertains to our town, isn't about the people of our town being racists, right? You touched on that earlier when you're like, man, those people like around the monument that were screaming those words, they don't represent me. Yeah. Of course they don't. But sometimes like, is it possible? Could we for a minute not get our own feelings hurt so bad that we couldn't maybe think things aren't as equal as they appear, right? Yeah, and then like go from there and say like, how do reflection. You know? Yeah, like so. Yeah, I mean, so anyway, right, that's that.
Which
podcast.
Leads to reconciliation. I mean, like, yeah,
right.
I mean, like let's.
I have thought about this a long time. I've talked to my Black friends about this. Like, first of all, soul food is the best. Let's remember this.
I concur.
Right?
That's where y'all landed in your conversation.
And the very best thing that we could start doing would be to have, like, it's very hard to hate and disregard people you eat with.
Over a shared meal. Sure. That's right.
And so, like, I've thought about having some sort of gathering on the Greenway where everybody brings their food and we all just eat together. Like, no huge agenda. We're not going to be out there like being like anti-racism or whatever. Like none of that. It's just like, let's just eat. Be. Like, let's just be with our neighbor, you know? But anyway, I don't know. That's down the road. That's a different ambition, right? Like we'll see, but I believe we can, like, you know, and I think we will. Like, that's what I'm saying. I think we will.
Power of invitation. That's another theme that pops up with us a lot. It's just like, you know, just ask, just see.
Yeah.
And people love to say yes.
They love it. They love it. Plus, you're a maniac if you don't want to get out there and eat soul food. Like,
you're crazy.
You're a crazy person.
We can't agree on anything if we don't agree on that.
Rob, we have to respect your time.
Let's call it a day.
Probably will cut this into two. Maybe not.
We should.
I don't know. No, he says no. He's the guy.
No, that's up to you guys.
I don't conversation.
But I would love to see you again. And I'll tell you this. I'll prep our next conversation. I would love to hop in because I'm sure you have some insights. And we have to navigate these waters. And we have to do it now. We're probably already behind with it. But like AI.
Yeah.
What that future looks like. What's it mean in education? What's it mean for this community? What does it mean for us as individuals? If you'll sit down with us again, we'd love to just like that.
That one's really going to get me in trouble.
Good.
But yeah, I'm for it.
Good.
I don't want to get in trouble with any of this. If you've reached the end of this, I didn't mean to offend you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, Rob, like Dan Buck told you, and I was reminded on Project SSA, you just made 2 new friends in town.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
You don't know it yet, but we're buddies, and that's the way it's going to be.
That's what I want.
And I thank you for your time. And
hey, thank you both for real. I really, truly appreciate this chance to dialogue with you and to hear your opinions. It's valuable to me. So what you're doing is valuable in the world.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.